You've always felt it, haven't you? That invisible distance between you and the rest of the world. It's not that you're alone. You're surrounded by people, but it's like no one really sees you. Like you're living on a different frequency, talking in a language no one else understands. You smile when they smile. You laugh at the right time. You play the role. But something inside you whispers, "This isn't me." That feeling of not belonging isn't your weakness, it's your superpower. Because the moment you stop trying to fit in, you start becoming dangerously real. And in a world full of copies, the one who doesn't belong becomes the one who transforms everything. In this video, I've divided the journey into 3 powerful parts, each exploring the pain, power, and transformation of not belonging through the deep psychological and philosophical insights of Albert Camus and Carl Jung. Part 1. The pain of not belonging is a sign you're awake. You're in a room full of people, but it feels like you're on the outside looking in. You hear the laughter. You see the smiles. You even smile back. But deep inside, you feel like a ghost floating through someone else's world. It's not that you don't try. You've tried everything. To fit in, to be like them, to talk like them, to care about what they care about. But no matter how many masks you wear, there's a voice inside that whispers, "You don't belong here." And that voice, the one you've tried so hard to silence, it's not your enemy. It's the most honest part of you. We live in a world built for the average, for the agreeable, for the easily controlled. Society loves conformity because it's safe, predictable. But the moment you start asking deeper questions, the moment you challenge the script, you become a threat, not a physical one, but an existential one. Because your presence reminds others of everything they've chosen to forget. People like you, the outsiders, the deep thinkers, the quiet observers. You were never meant to fit in. You weren't built for noise. You were built for depth. Carl Jung once said, "Loneliness does not come from being alone, but from being unable to communicate the things that matter most." And isn't that what hurts the most? Not being alone, but being unseen. Being surrounded by people who hear your words but never feel your meaning, who nod and smile while your soul screams beneath the surface. You feel things too deeply. You see what others ignore. You pick up on the lies in their voices, the hesitation in their smiles, the shadows behind their eyes, and when you try to speak that truth, they pull away. They call you too intense, too sensitive, too much. So you shrink. You dim your light. You pretend to be okay with the shallow conversations, the fake laughter, the hollow connections. But something inside you keeps aching. A quiet, gnawing ache that says, "This isn't it." That ache is not your weakness. It's your clarity. It's proof that your soul is still alive in a world that wants it dead. Because most people aren't really living. They're performing, smiling when they want to scream, nodding when they want to run, saying yes when their entire body is begging them to say no. They've buried their truth so deep they can't even feel it anymore. And then they look at you, raw, real, unfiltered, and it terrifies them. Because you remind them of the parts of themselves they've abandoned. You're not broken because you don't belong. You're broken when you keep pretending that you do. You've spent your whole life on the outside, thinking that means something is wrong with you. But what if it's not a punishment? What if it's a signal? A signal that you were never meant to follow the herd, that your mind wasn't built to be tamed, that your heart wasn't meant to be silent. Albert Camus wrote about this kind of existential exile. He called it the feeling of being a stranger in your own skin. That sense that you've woken up inside a story you didn't write. And you're not alone in that feeling. Nietzsche felt it. Kafka lived it. Jung explored it. Van Gogh painted it. Franz Kafka said, "I am free and that is why I am lost." That's the paradox. You're free because you see the world for what it is, but you feel lost because no one around you sees it too. But here's the twist. That pain, that disconnection, that isolation, it's not a curse. It's a superpower in disguise. Because when you no longer belong to the crowd, you begin to belong to yourself. When you stop trying to fit into spaces that shrink you, you start building spaces that reflect you. When you stop craving approval, you start reclaiming your power. You stop asking, "What's wrong with me?" and start asking, "What kind of world would honor who I truly am?" Most people never reach this point. They keep fighting to be accepted, not realizing the price is their authenticity. But you feel the weight of being an outsider, and you're beginning to realize it's not a weight, it's a gift. You weren't rejected by the world. You were released from it. You weren't pushed out. You were set free because you were never meant to be just another copy. You were meant to be a disruption, a question, a storm, a force that makes others pause and rethink what they've accepted as normal. Yes, it's lonely at times. Yes, it hurts to feel invisible. But remember, every legend, every rebel, every genius who ever changed the world once sat alone, just like you are now, wondering if they were crazy. They weren't, and neither are you. You're not too much. You're just too real for a world addicted to fake. And the longer you stay true to yourself, the more you'll realize you never belonged anywhere because you were meant to create your own place. Part 2. The moment you stop needing to belong, you become powerful. There comes a moment, a quiet, terrifying moment, when you stop trying. You stop trying to fit in. You stop trying to be understood. You stop trying to win their approval. And in that moment, something strange happens. You feel powerful, not loud, flashy, aggressive power, but silent, grounded, unshakable power. The kind that comes from finally being done pretending, done pleasing, done shrinking. Because something in you breaks, and in breaking, it releases you. You realize you don't need their validation. You don't need to be chosen. You don't need to belong to the tribe. You already belong to something far more rare, yourself. This is where Albert Camus was different. He didn't tell you to fake happiness. He didn't tell you to chase some higher meaning. He told the truth. Life is absurd. There are no answers. No grand reward for being good. No system that will suddenly make sense. But once you accept that, you are free. The only way to deal with an unfree world, Camus said, is to become so absolutely free that your very existence is an act of rebellion. That's what you become when you stop needing to belong. A walking rebellion. The world is built to manipulate the ones who still want to be accepted. When you care what others think of you, they own you. They can guilt you, gaslight you, use your image of yourself against you. That's why people pleasers get broken. Why the kindest souls often end up the most wounded. But when you stop caring, when you finally say, "Let them misunderstand me, let them reject me, let them talk," you become untouchable. It's like emotional armor, not the fake kind where you act cold but secretly crave love, but real power, the kind that comes from finally seeing through the game. People want you digestible, nice, polite, smiling, predictable. That way they can control you. That way you're safe, not for you, but for them. But when you drop the mask, when you stop performing, they panic because now you've become what they can't label, what they can't tame, what they can't seduce, threaten, or mold. You become chaos to their fragile little order. You become unpredictable. And in this world, unpredictability is power. Carl Jung understood this deeply. He believed that true individuation, true wholeness, only begins when you stop trying to be liked. He wrote, "The privilege of a lifetime is to become who you truly are. Not who others expect, not who gets the most praise, but who you are when no one is watching, who you are when there's no applause to chase." And here's the strange paradox. Once you become that version of yourself, you may still feel alone, but you're no longer afraid of it. In fact, your solitude becomes sacred. The need to belong comes from fear. Fear of being rejected, fear of abandonment, fear of being nothing without others. But once you've sat in your loneliness long enough, once you've survived the silence, you begin to realize you don't need anyone to confirm your existence. You exist, you matter. You're enough, even if no one claps for you. That's freedom. Most people never taste that freedom. They're stuck in the performance, trapped in borrowed identities. They belong to everyone, their family, their followers, their culture, except themselves. But you who feel like you don't belong anywhere are standing at the edge of that cage. And if you take one more step, not toward them, but away from them, you'll discover something they never will. The joy of being fully, wildly, unapologetically yourself. You stop needing attention. You stop needing to explain. You stop negotiating your soul for scraps of acceptance. And suddenly you become dangerous. Not because you intend to harm, but because you no longer play the game. You're no longer seduced by applause or destroyed by criticism. You act, you move, you speak, not to be heard, but because it is your truth. You don't chase, you attract. You don't seek love, you embody it, quietly, fiercely, fully. The most terrifying person in the world is the one who no longer needs to be liked, because you can't use them. You can't fake them out. You can't break someone who doesn't fear being alone. And that is who you are becoming. Not someone who doesn't belong, but someone who belongs only to themselves. Not a victim of rejection, but a master of solitude. Not someone cast out by the world, but someone too awake to ever be caged by it again. You were never meant to fit in. You were meant to wake up. And now that you have, don't look back. Part 3, you were never meant to fit in. You were meant to build your own world. After all the loneliness, after all the rejection, the silence, the ache to be seen, there comes a quiet understanding. Maybe I don't belong anywhere because I was never supposed to. And that realization doesn't break you. It awakens you. Because now, instead of trying to find where you fit, you begin creating where you thrive. You stop walking into rooms hoping someone recognizes you. Instead, you walk in knowing exactly who you are, even if nobody else does. You stop waiting for a tribe. You stop looking for a mirror in someone else's eyes. You stop begging to be claimed, because now you're building something of your own, a life that matches your values, a world that honors your truth, a place where your soul no longer has to whisper. Albert Camus said, "In the depth of winter, I finally learned that within me lay an invincible summer." That's what you found. Not comfort in the crowd, but strength in the silence. Not safety in the known, but purpose in the wild unknown. Not a role handed to you, but a life forged by you. You stop living by default. You start living on purpose. Look around you, and every system, every structure, every tradition was once just someone's idea. Someone's rebellion. The world was not built by people who fit in. It was built by those who refused to. The outsiders. The ones who were laughed at, ignored, rejected. The ones who spoke when it was easier to stay silent. Who walked alone when it was safer to follow. That is your lineage. You don't belong in the system because you're here to redesign it. You don't resonate with shallow love because you're built for sacred depth. You don't feel safe in the herd because your spirit is made for freedom, not survival. Carl Jung called this journey individuation, the process of becoming whole by integrating all the parts of yourself society told you to hide. It's not about blending in, it's about becoming real. The rage, the tenderness, the chaos, the silence, all of it. Once you accept every piece of yourself, you no longer seek that wholeness in someone else's eyes. You no longer chase external belonging because you've built an internal home. You realize, I wasn't born to obey. I wasn't born to be understood. I wasn't born to perform for a crowd. I was born to witness, to feel, to speak truth, to carve my own way through the wilderness. And that wilderness, that strange, uncertain, sacred path, is where your real life begins. It's not an easy path. There will still be silence, still moments of doubt, still nights where you wonder if it would have been easier to just play the game. But every time you look back at the crowd, you'll see what you left behind. A life of pretending, a life of masks, a life of being half alive just to be accepted. And then you'll return to your path, alone but awake. Because once you taste the freedom of authenticity, you never go back to the prison of performance. You were never too much. You were never broken. You were simply misplaced. And now you're not asking for space at their table. You're building your own. A place where depth is welcome, where silence is sacred, where truth is more important than popularity, where healing is possible, where power doesn't come from control, but from clarity. And maybe, just maybe, in doing that, you'll meet others like you. Not because you chase them, but because real attracts real. And when it happens, it won't be a crowd. It'll be a few, rare, raw, unfiltered. People who don't want to fix you, impress you, or use you, but simply see you. And that kind of connection, that soul-level, mirror-in-the-dark recognition, is worth more than 1,000 fake friendships. So stop searching for the world that fits you. Start building the one that reflects you. Use your loneliness as a compass. Use your pain as your raw material. Use your rejection as a blueprint. Use your silence as a foundation. Don't wait for the world to understand you. Make it impossible to ignore you, because you don't belong anywhere. And that is exactly why you can belong everywhere. As yourself. You are not lost. You are on your way to becoming undeniably real. And in a world that thrives on illusions, that's not a weakness. That's your superpower.